So my name is Cassie Smith. So I have Alport syndrome, the X-linked kind. And I have 3 kids. I'm married. I have a 10-year-old daughter. She has X-linked Alport syndrome as well, a 6-year-old son who also has it, and a 3-year-old little boy who does not have it. So we found that all out through molecular genetics in about 2019 or so. So I first kind of heard about it, or I knew about it. Actually, have an extensive family history of Alport syndrome, but it, of course, came to me through well, I shouldn't say of course, because it could come through a father as well, X-linked Alport syndrome for a female to have it. But in my case, it came from my mother, and my mother inherited it from her mother. So kind of trickled down. We weren't really sure, or there were at least conversations about whether or not I had it or whether or not my mother had it. She's had a very mild presentation. She's still doing really well. So I was maybe early teens or so when we started talking about the possibility, but we were told at that time that there really was nothing that could be done. So it was just kind of a wait and see type of game. I'm not sure that it ever really actually made it onto my chart. It may have. We also received some conflicting information as to whether or not females were just carriers or whether I actually had the disease and what that actually meant for me. And I was maybe 12 or so at the time. So we didn't really talk about like reproduction. That really wasn't a conversation at the time. It was just whether or not I needed treatment. And all of that came or went by the wayside, I would say. I didn't really need any treatment even at the time, as far as like what the standards were, what the guidelines were. So I didn't really talk about it a whole lot with my healthcare providers. I didn't really worry about it. It just didn't really cross my mind. But Alport syndrome is a genetic disease, X-linked in my case. It can be inherited in other ways. And in females, especially, about 95% of females will have blood in their urine. And I certainly always have. And then eventually it just kind of progresses. So you start to have protein spilling in your urine. And it usually goes through the stages of chronic kidney disease. And in some female cases, it can end in end-stage renal disease and the need for dialysis or transplant. And I've seen that in my family for sure. So I'm going to be one of those cases that really did not, I will say that I should have known, or I should have pursued my options or even investigated the possibility of there being options. I didn't. I was busy, I will say, and I know that's probably sounds like a terrible excuse, but for some people who maybe don't agree with, maybe how I came to have children, but it basically, I was really young when I had my first daughter. I was 20 years old. There were so many things going on. I was in nursing school, I was starting a new job. And I never really investigated the fact that there were other options for me. If there were at the time, I really don't even know. And then let's see. So fast forward several years, was remarried and we were really looking forward to having kids. And I kind of knew the possibility. It was maybe a little bit more serious at that point as to whether I had it or not. But we still didn't realize that there were even options other than just not having children. And we knew that we wanted to have children, so we did. We had my second born, so my oldest son. And then I think after that point, I started to worry a little bit more about what this meant for him or my daughter. And my husband and I actually decided not to have any more children at that point. And then we had a little surprise who I love and cherish and adore, and he's been the best blessing ever. But we have another son as well, so we have 3. But it was after the birth of my second one that I started realizing that maybe there were options, but I didn't really investigate it even still until after, that third one was born and we started to pursue medical treatment for our children. We did, just for curiosity's sake, look into whether our insurance covered IVF, and it does not. So, I don't know what, I will say I probably would have considered it had I known more about it before I had my kids. To me, it was just IVF was for, infertility, and I didn't realize that you could pursue that for genetic disorders. I don't think that I would have changed my mind other than maybe doing maybe IVF, but that would have been, just a possibility. I'm not sure. I definitely would have chosen to have children naturally if IVF was not an option. Just because I think now I have them here, and they are such a blessing to me, and I couldn't imagine my life without them. And I know that sounds so, maybe cliche or whatever, but I don't know. I think I would have just told myself to take my time and to learn as much as I can, and that also that it's okay, whichever, path that I choose. And that's, I don't know, it's such an extremely personal decision. I'm glad that I have my children. I will say that. I'm very happy that they're here. For me, a large part of the reproductive, I'd say mental health for me, all of that kind of hit after I had my children. So once I started becoming more involved with like Remember the Girls, or even my rare disease organization, and informing myself more and realizing that there had been options open to me at the time, I dealt with a lot of guilt. And I think that's something that a lot of people with genetic disorders experience, like this genetic guilt. It makes no sense, right? I certainly don't blame anyone for myself having it, but I blamed myself heavily for, quote unquote, giving it to my children. Of course, I didn't hand package it or tie it up with a bow. It just is, part of me. And so it's a part of them. But I would say that it was really difficult. I dealt with a lot of guilt for a while. But someone told me once that, you can appreciate the influences that, or things that were occurring in your life that led you to the decision that you made, or indecision that you made. And you don't have to, be angry or be happy, or even, it's just, you can just look at them and understand them. And it gives you a more holistic like view of yourself and what was occurring in your life, and just more appreciation for why you chose what you chose. So anyway, that was really helpful to me. I'm not sure that I did that justice like she did, but it was just really helpful. And I'm able to just appreciate everything that was happening in my life, and that led me to where I am, and led to my children eventually, the ones that I have here with me, and they're just amazing.